Ramji. So when we practice yoga, yoga is received through the disciplic succession. This is explained everywhere. In Vedas and Upanishads and Puranas, you can find lots of references on this topic. And there's reason for that. Because spiritual practice is coming down. It's coming down from the realization. It's coming down with the relationship, which means that one have to have the living representative between, because it's not only about getting information and understanding the philosophical concepts of the practice, or even getting the tantra, getting the practice itself. But what is important as well is the iksha, which is the certain intellectual perspective on the practice. So iksha is imparted from the teacher to the student through the living relationship over the practice, not just a social relationship. And that iksha is creating the tavar, which is that platform for the realization to happen. Which means that it's not enough that I get the information, it's not enough that I get the practice, but I have to have the living relationship. And that iksha is achieved, that intellectual perspective, that one is aligning to the intellectual perspective of teacher. So the teacher is pleased on one's practice, in that sense that not only the practice itself, but also one's approach, how one is approaching the practice. What is one's perspective on the practice. And the teacher's practice is based on the relationship to his teacher's practice, which means that the teacher has adopted the iksha, the perspective of their teachers, which means that now there is that same perspective is moving through the disciplic succession, not only the theory, Sampana Abhideya Prayojana, that theoretical field, the practice and the goal, but also that angle to the practice. And without that angle to the practice, things get distorted. And we can see it. We can see that no information and practices are available, but not anymore in coherent way. They are not coming down as the Sampana Abhideya Prayojana practice there, so that it becomes a coherent sequence. That's lost. Another thing is that living relationship to these traditions is lost. You cannot get the practice. You cannot get the practice just by trying to get that theory or the practice itself. You have to receive it through the relationship. That relationship has to be positive relationship, which means that it's aligned. The perspective of the student is aligned with the perspective of teacher. And books cannot give this to you. And just by practicing that cannot come. And getting ideas here and there, you cannot receive it. And now there's even this AI. They developing the AI is based on the teachings of some popular past gurus. There's example Prabhupada's AI is there out already, and there's others also they are developing. But the problem is this kind of AI, that those algorithms are based on the values of those developers. Like if you see the ChatGPT is basically having the value system of woke Californian woman, because that's the culture where it's coming from. That AI, which means that you're not getting that information from that AI objective and non-political way, but you are getting not only the information, but you are getting certain perspective. You may be not aware of that, but you are getting certain perspective how that AI is giving that information to you. So you cannot just create some AI based on teachings of some past master. It's more taking you towards the perspective of those developers of the AI, instead of taking you towards the perspective of the teachers. So that's something important that's very much missing in yoga, and it's missing on that way that one cannot get back anymore. Once these disciplic successions are disappeared, one cannot get back to that understanding anymore. It cannot be reconstructed. Like example, people try to reconstruct this Krishnamacharya's legacy, but there's no coherent lineage coming from him where actual Sambandha Abhideya Prayotsana, the Antastana, Vidyastana, and then this Tantra is transmitted to the living representative of Krishnamacharya. There's such teaching here and there, and then someone try to bring them together, and out of the good faith they wanna present it to the others as Krishnamacharya's legacy. But that's not how it works. If the tradition is already dead, it's already dead. Well, what to speak about Patanjali and others? People are taking the book and they are quoting the book and try to live by the book. But there's no anymore. You don't have teacher-student relationship on that through that book anymore. And even there's some people may have some teacher-student relationship, but they are not strictly paramparas, which means that they are not strictly following some teaching, certain teaching line. And if you go back to this AI, we can see that that's more reflecting the consciousness of those creators than the actual teachers, that actual past spiritual masters or spiritual teachers perspective. So it doesn't work. It doesn't work. One needs that relationship to that living representative. Otherwise, it doesn't go in the right direction. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita also tadviti pranipader paripasena seva upadekshanti yaminas tatvadarsana. If you want to understand the yoga, you have to find a teacher who has right kind of perception, who has seen the truth, so to say. Either they are firmly established on that proper path, or they actually already self-realized. So one don't need to be perfect, one have to be rightly aligned in order to impart that understanding. And like if there's no that kind of connection, then it's basically impossible to get the yoga practice proper way. And if you don't have that yoga practice, receive it proper way, then how can you practice yoga? And if you cannot practice yoga, how that understanding, what is promised by the yoga, the spiritual understanding, how that can come? Like if you want to put yourself above all these teachers and gurus and tradition and trust your own discrimination, that's what you try to do. You try to put yourself above them, that you know which part of you have to take from which traditions and which people, which means that you should be already, you basically indicating that you're already there, because you are able to see what you need, what you don't need. Which means that, and if you see yourself that you are above all these traditions, you actually not even connected to them anymore. And this kind of if one is trying to develop this kind of AI based on these teachers, and as I explained before, it just reflects the consciousness of those who are more the perspective of those who are developing these AIs, which means that it's this kind of programming and building these algorithms and this kind of coding and stuff like this, they come from the Sankhya Anubuddhi, which means that the mathematical and this buddhi that is building the hierarchies. And that's not enough for the spiritual practice. Without the proper connection, you cannot trust the spiritual perspective of some physicists or mathematicians or coders or something like that. That's not enough. If your Sankhya Anubuddhi is strong, that's not enough for you to actually grasp the spiritual ideals. You need that. You need that relationship over the practice, where the practice is transmitted, and everything else you can fake. Everything else you can fake. You can see it. You can let the people understand, but you cannot really fake that relationship. It's either there or it's not there. Sri Radhe Shyam.